Ladies and gentlemen, when it's Tuesday, you know it's the Raw Leadership Talk. And we are glad to be here today. This being the second last Raw Leadership Talk broadcast this year, and the last one in the month of November, as we complete the month of November today on 30th November 2021. Where are you tuning in from? We're going to have a wonderful discussion here today why leadership trust is critical in times of change and disruption. And you don't want to miss this. Join us, tell us where you're joining us from, engage with us in this conversation with Dr. Paul Kariuki, all the way from Durban, South Africa. It's going to be a wonderful discussion. It's going to be a wonderful discussion. As we listen to the word of music by Handel Messiah, get ready for a takeoff. Where are you tuning in from? Engage with us. Engage with us. Thank you very much for connecting with us. In the whole month of November, we at the Africa Center for Public Speaking, in partnership with the Initiatives of Change, we've been running the Trust Building Month awareness, together with doing the fundraising through the charity run, the first ever virtual charity run that has been running the whole of this month. And we did the charity run on 26th, 27th, and 28th, which was last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And while we are done with the charity run, we are not done with the fundraising. We still have a few more days. For those who still want to contribute, you can still contribute or donate towards the trust building program using the pay bill 891300 and the account number 50078. All this is to say you support the trust building program, bringing Muslims and Christians together and people of different ethnic groups to dialogue on matters peace and trust building for peaceful coexistence as Kenyans, especially even as we go towards the election next year, 2022. And today, this being our second last broadcast this year, we thought it wise to have Dr. Paul with us, who is the Executive Director of DDP South Africa, to engage with us in this particular topic of why leadership trust is critical in times of change and disruption. Dr. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm fabulous. Great to be here again and to engage on this wonderful topic. I believe that will be very insightful, especially for the times that we've gone through in the last 2 years now, since COVID pandemic hit our shores and has disrupted everything that could have been disrupted, and nothing has been left the way it was. So it's very interesting to discuss about leadership and how to build leadership trust in such times.
Wonderful. Maybe you need to share with our viewers, what is leadership trust?
So leadership trust simply means that the strengthening or the rebuilding, for example, of trustworthy relationships that are reliable, that can be depended upon, that people have confidence in one another, and that their word is their bond. It connotes the sense of confidence and reliability, the sureness, the freedom from suspicion or any doubt, which becomes now the glue that holds people together in such times. And from a leadership perspective, it's actually that assurance that leaders continually give the
Mhm.
teams that they lead and the people that they work with, in
Mhm.
helping them to navigate the different transitions at personal and professional levels, as people making adjustments continuously as they adapt to the changing conditions in their environment. So it is that one sense of sureness and being assured that I can rely on you and you can rely on me, and we can be able to build together even when we are grappling with uncertainty, that we have that confidence and there is no room for suspicion or doubt.
Do you think then that trust building is a key element also in corporate organizations as much as we've been doing it in the community? What is your take in that?
I think it's very important. It's actually a cross-cutting concept, because there is nothing that holds things together in society if this one element is out of place. It
Mhm.
affects nations negatively when, for example, citizens do not have trust in their governments. It
Mhm.
affects corporate organizations when people or employees are not confident or trust the leadership of their corporate institutions. And so it does also at the community level, and also goes down even in families. When the element of trust is removed out of the equation, nothing holds together. So it's a cross-cutting concept, and that needs to be cultivated all the time. It's not a once-off initiative, and it builds on everything that we do to with each other every day, consciously and unconsciously. And therefore, I believe it's an important aspect of societal engagement that cannot be underemphasized, especially in times that we're living in.
Wonderful, wonderful. Bernardine Mundui following. Thank you very much, Bernardine, for following the Raw Leadership Talk.
Mhm.
Why do you think, Dr. Paul, that leadership trust is important in such times as this where we have continuous disruption?
I think first and foremost, it's important because in times of transitions, people are grappling with so many variables in their environment at both personal and professional levels. And
Mhm.
transitions, as we know, they're not the easiest thing to manage because they bring with them an element of not knowing what will happen next. And so,
Yeah.
in building, in the context of organizations, leaders need to provide that level of assurance and the level of reliability, that they are
Mhm.
able to connect everyone together to the common purpose and the common mission, whilst at the same time working on both ends of extremes here. One is a structural aspects of externalities. People are working in context of environments that are it's influenced by factors that are beyond their control. For example, they are grappling with issues of economic changes, they're grappling with issues of climate change, they're
Yeah.
grappling with the issues of unemployment. Those are external factors that are beyond anyone's control. And leaders
Yes.
need to manage that extreme versus the other extreme, which is the inner person environment, how the person at a human level, they're adapting to the different changes in their own environment. And leaders are the ones who create the balance between the external pressures and the internal pressures. And they provide leadership in between those transitions to ensure that their teams or the people they lead remain productive, remain creative, remain connected. That's the first reason. The second reason why this is very important, it's because organizations thrive on leadership. When the
Yeah.
leadership is missing, then the organizations or institutions or nations or communities or families cease to exist in that way also. And therefore, building that element of trust in those elements of our societal existence is very, very important because it helps to manage disruptions and the uncertainty that disruptions bring. And thirdly, it's important for this leadership trust to be brought together so that it can harness the interpersonal strengths that we build with each other as people. One of the key elements that this leadership trust builds on is
Yes.
the strength that we have as human beings, the resilience that we have to survive difficult situations that we do not even know how to interpret. And the element of trust is that I can stand by you and you can stand by me to get through what seemingly looks like a mountain that we cannot be able to surpass at an individual level. And
But
so
Dr.
when we
Paul,
leave, Mhm,
Dr. Paul, somebody would be asking them,
mhm,
because you have shed the light that is very important to do this. But somebody will be asking, how do we build leadership trust, especially in hard times, such times of disruption, where
yes.
really trust is broken down? People are looking at each other with suspicion. People are not sure about whether leadership means well. How do we build trust?
Firstly, is to go back to our elements of our ethical existence, that we have
Mhm,
to build on principles of honesty and ethical living, where
mhm.
people are able to see each other as human beings and not as units of labor
Yeah,
or other assets to be exploited.
yeah,
When we don't see our humanity in the context of our transitions and difficult times of disruptions, then we tend to see our humanity as elements of exploitation and
yeah.
not people who deserve love, who deserve compassion, and who deserve empathy. That's the first thing. The second thing to build on to how to strengthen or to build leadership trust is to start making sure that our words do match what we say. You see,
Mhm.
because if people cannot be able to rely on what people communicate with each other on a daily basis, the
Very
elements of
important.
trust get to wear out. And before you know, the fabric that has been holding people together, even at a family level or a societal level, organizational level, or even a state level, that fabric
Mhm.
starts to tear away. And before you know, there is nothing holding people together. So that's also very important. And the third thing is, of course, to make sure that we have the character that matches the words that we speak. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's very hard to speak one thing, but your character is speaking something else.
Yes.
And sometimes that becomes a problem, especially an impediment towards building strong societies, because also who we look up to, sometimes their character do not match what they say. And therefore,
Yeah.
they wear the trust levels between citizens and the state, or citizens and or employers and employees, and becomes a very challenging aspect, especially in such times of uncertainty where character is opposed to words of action.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sinza Godigodi is saying, watching from Dar es Salaam. Thank you very much, Sinza, for connecting with us at the Raw Leadership Talk. Where are you watching us from? And you would like to ask a question, who will be more than willing to engage with you and be able to tackle anything that you bring our way. But Dr. Paul, let's go a little bit international here. And I want to hear your honest thoughts as far as this is concerned. South Africa discovered a variant, a new variant, COVID-19 variant presently, and some of the European countries have issued a travel ban. And we already know what's going on already in Europe. I think Germany the other day registered 74,000 cases in a day. And, I think UK registered over 40,000 cases in a day. Here is South Africa leading the way in Africa and say, look, our lab, being people of research, we have discovered this variant. But then the European countries say, okay, you have discovered a variant. Instead of us coming together and help each other uh, see how we go about this, they have banned South Africa and issued a travel ban South Africa and five of her neighbor countries. What is your take as far as that is concerned, and the mistrust around the world today?
Yes, that's a very, very important question to think through, and especially and a complex one at the same time,
Yes.
because of the factors in between here. So here we're talking of a global public health emergency that is
Yes.
being influenced by interest, political interest, at the same time as human interest. So the political interest here is to control who controls the market for these vaccines. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we have seen an ongoing tussle between countries that have the capacity to vaccinate their populations without challenges versus the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the world that is even struggling to get even a third of their citizens vaccinated because of challenges of financial resources to buy the necessary vaccines, to the challenges also of poor health infrastructure to including weak human resource factors that actually make it very impossible for them to be able to manage vaccination programs. So we are talking of extremes here that are driven by political interests and political ambitions. Then we are talking on the other side of the mistrust that comes with the fact that of quality. Who is getting the best quality of these vaccines? And especially the rest of the third world, that Africa, Southern North America, and Asia. There is a struggle between trying to understand, is the quality of our northern counterparts same as the quality that we're receiving on this end of the world? And that has created mistrust, because political interpretation has been that the virus is more severe when it comes from the rest of the world other than when it's coming from the first world. By creating these artificial burns, is trying to indicate that the virus chooses where to go, and it doesn't. Whether you close the border,
and that's wrong, right?
exactly, it will go whenever it wants to go because it does not respect any borders. And therefore, the issue of the political pressure now is trying to manage these relationships in a way that it does not jeopardize the lives of the people, but at the same time, it is now straining inter-country cooperation and inter-country trust, because the countries from the north that are influencing our counterparts in the south, are now creating the tensions between, for example, South Africa and her neighbors, because all of a sudden we've been coexisting with the virus as neighbors. But now all of a sudden we don't want to see each other because now somebody from the north has declared that we are actually a serious country right now to be engaged with. And this is the problem of political mismanagement of a public health emergency such as the one we are combating right now.
Wonderful thoughts there, wonderful thoughts. Makenri Mokase following from Nairobi. Dr. Paul, coming back to you, what makes leadership trust work? What makes leadership trust work?
Firstly, is building on relationships with people and with one another. It's difficult to build a trusting relationship when we do not see each other as human beings in the first place. And secondly, we do not place value on each other. If I need to make sure that we are able to move together towards a common purpose and a common goal, I must see the value in the person that I'm wanting to work with or the person that I'm leading with as a leader of an organization. If I don't see them as valuable and I do not place value on them, then I reduce them to units of labor and tools to be used rather than human beings that are strengthening in relationships towards a common purpose. That's the first one. The second thing, it builds on a shared language and understanding. We must speak from the same hymn sheet if we are going to build trust. I cannot speak one thing to one person and speak to another thing to the next person and expect relationships to be strengthened. Therefore, it's important for these relationships to be built on shared language and common understanding, so that when we speak and when we talk about something that we both value, then we are able to rely on one another to commit to what we have agreed. Now, that's very important. It's easier said than done, because it actually revolves around individual characters. There are some people that I cannot mention here, but we say whenever you see their lips moving, they're actually lying already. You see, and it's a common phrase somewhere, but it's very important because it's always revolving around the character of individuals. And therefore, if people suspect the character of a person, then the language that needs to be there so that trust can be built, it's already eliminated out of the equation. So it's important to build on relationships by valuing people and placing value on them. And secondly, building on a shared language and an understanding towards a common purpose. And the third thing, it aims at strengthening the already existing interpersonal relationships. Remember, you're not rebuilding from ground zero. There is already something that exists. What you're now doing is building on whatever that is existing to make sure that that human connection is strengthened and it's actually supported by values of empathy, compassion, trust, honesty, collaboration, and very importantly, understanding each other's world. That's very important because not everyone is able to resonate to the changing environment and disruptions that we see on the same wavelength. Some people are more resilient than others. Some people are more compassionate than others. Some people are more understanding than others. And the task of leadership is to manage the tensions that come with these adaptations on a continuous basis by understanding the teams that we lead and ensuring that you're able to step on each other's environment with a high level of empathy and compassion.
Wonderful thoughts, right there. And I agree with you. I think Mark Henry Maka also has given out his comments in relation to the variant. But what is the place of honest conversation in enabling trust to be built in the society, in a nation, and even in a family, Dr. Paul?
That's very important and a very good question. It builds on understanding, firstly, the realities of our existence.
Yes.
Is that, as I just said, that there are different capacities individually and organizationally on how people respond to transitions and how people adapt to changes. You recognize the reality that none is perfect. And when you see from that point of view, then you're able to walk alongside people with a level of compassion and not with that high level thinking that I'm better than or stronger than or greater than. You work with people because you understand the realities that we are all imperfect people striving to become better by the day, understanding that reality. The other part of it is to understand that transitions are never permanent. They are always part of our change. And therefore, it means that you got to embrace change as an opportunity for learning and growing at a personal level and at organizational level if you're leading an organization, and even at a societal level. Change is good because it helps us to understand where our weaknesses are and what we need to do better so that we can become more resilient, not only to survive challenging times like we're living in, but also as people when we are moving from one phase of life to the next. Change can be scary, but if it's embraced with the right attitude and with the right thinking, it becomes actually a positive aspect of our lives because we tend to grow in areas we thought we never, actually, sometimes some of these areas we never even thought they existed, or some that we've been postponing or procrastinating because we never thought time has come to address what we see, and the fear of crossing from the familiar to the unfamiliar stifles our development as people. And so, in harnessing individual leadership capacities and collective leadership capacities, change help us to address the areas of fear and gives us the courage to step into something that we never tried before. And now we are convinced that there is capacity. And the last thing there is that if we do not understand that, if we do not change the way we think, a whole issue of mindset, there's a high probability that opportunities that comes with transition will bypass us. Now, change in mindsets is very important, especially in the relationships that we're talking about in creating relationships of trust. I got to see you and place value in what you do and what you are as a person, and allow my mindset to go beyond the divides that society has created in us, the gender divides, the religious divides, the socioeconomic divides, and all those kind of things that do influence the way people interpret each other. So when we embrace a positive mindset that says that there is something in each other that I need and they need from me, so that we can create a co-create. I would like to use the word co-create, so that we can co-create a world of possibilities, even in times of transition. That kind of a mindset is very important in building trust.
Thank you. Wonderful thoughts right there. Just a moment, Dr. Paul. I'm just thinking about family, because all these people who work in corporate organization, they work in the government, they are part of a society, they come from the family. Today we are finding this change and disruptions also affecting the family big time. We have had a high level of gender-based violence, feminicides, and depression during this time. What would you say about the part of leadership trust as far as the family is concerned?
Firstly, that's very important, and especially when we are confronting such a serious scourge in our society that has actually, become very pervasive and very chronic. Is first of all going back to the values and the foundations of what a family unit is about. A family
Yes.
unit is an important unit that builds on what a society becomes. So,
Yeah.
firstly, going back by saying that if there has to be a strong society, it has to be made by strong families that
Mhm.
are principled on common values, values of compassion, again,
Yes.
values of real honest conversations about where we are as a family, realities. You see,
Mhm.
sometimes people forget that if we do not interpret our realities as families correctly, we
Mhm.
tend to live beyond our means, because we're either competing with people or we are trying to become like other people, and we do not
Mhm.
have the capacity to be in that space at this point in time. It could be
Mhm.
a goal to work towards to, but we are not there right now. So it
Yes.
means then we have to work with the reality of today, striving towards where we think we need to be.
Mhm.
The other extreme is when people do not interpret their realities, and then they start living below what their capacity is as families. And so they start entertaining attitudes and behaviors that do take away their ability to appreciate each other's gifts and start overlooking each other. What
Yes.
happens in that case that you create an environment of competition rather than of complementing one another. And therefore the sense of togetherness is weakened, because now elements of jealousy and inter-family fights become now the norm of such families. And before you know, people are ruining each other to the
Yes.
extent that if it means to harm each other to gain advantage, whatever they may define as their own advantage, becomes a role or norm. And now what we are now confronting as society as far as gender-based violence is concerned is when we dehumanize the value of relationships that we have as families. That
Yes.
then we become easy instruments of destruction rather than instruments of building together.
Wonderful thoughts, wonderful thoughts. What will be your parting shot even as we bring this broadcast to an end? Been a wonderful journey this year together with you in different broadcasts. I
Mm.
don't know, what will be your parting shot even as we bring this broadcast to an
I would say that building trust and trusting relationships is not a once-off initiative. It's an ongoing work, and it starts from an individual, me as Paul, and you as Dan, and everybody else. And we begin working on each other's areas of interest that we need to build our strengths, to trust people, to learn to grow with the change, to embrace change as good, and even more importantly, to be people of compassion and empathy. We cannot become trusting people if we do not value compassion, because our society needs us, and we cannot build a society that is cohesive if elements of compassion and empathy are overlooked.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful moment here at the Pro Leadership Talk today, sharing about issues of leadership trust together with Dr. Paul from Durban, South Africa. I want to believe that you have benefited a lot from the nuggets of wisdom that he has shared with you. Until next Tuesday, looking forward to connect with you in our last broadcast of the year 2021 before we take a break. God bless you and have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.